Well, seems to be working.
Joe is the great mighty Pooh, and he's going to throw his shit at you.
Extreme.
Oh, man, he already totally beat you on the poo thing. Well, that sounded weird.
We hear what we want to hear, dude.
Poop. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Embassy Exclusive. This is a monthly supplemental show for fans of the VG Embassy Game Music Podcast. I'm Ed.
I'm Joe.
I'm Todd.
And each month we get together and share video game music, the latest news in gaming, and our lukewarm pizza opinions on both. This is episode 48 for August 2023. I hope everybody enjoys it, as usual.
Lukewarm pizza.
Lukewarm pizza.
Not as bad as you would think.
Yeah, no, I mean, any kind of pizza is good. We're talking about it because we just had some
Lukewarm pizza.
Yeah. The wife was a bit late getting to the pizza place. And so I guess let's just explain this. So today technically is the first day of Retro World Expo. Usually at least Todd and I go have we skipped a year since it started? I don't think we have.
No.
Aside from obviously the year it didn't happen because of COVID.
Right.
But we just, nobody else was going this year and we just decided,
This is our attempt at counter-programming.
Exactly.
Retro games are too expensive. Like
COVID numbers are up.
COVID numbers are up.
I'm
and
dead
so
ass
it's
broke.
like, what am I going to do there?
Right.
I'm not going to buy anything.
Exactly. So we just decided, Todd was interested in buying one of the 3DO ODE units that I had. Let you play games off of a USB drive. So he came over earlier in the day. We hooked up his 3DO, got it working. Everything's good with that. Joe came over. We watched a bunch of fun game trailers and chatted games for a bit. Ate some pizza, and now we're here.
Now we're here.
Full of pizza and beer or soda or whatever you call it. Fox and Park.
And correlating opinions.
Exactly. So, how you guys been? Joe, it's been a while since you've been on the show. You missed last month.
Was that 2 months ago or was that last month?
Wait, was that last month?
I think that was 2 months ago I missed. 'Cause I've
Boy.
been here since, haven't I?
Yes, you recorded the terrible...
yeah.
video
Oh,
game
that's
music.
what it was.
That
Okay.
wasn't an EE episode.
So it was
that
the
was
last
regular.
EE, but you have been on the show since.
Yes.
But we didn't really talk about what we've been catching up
We
on.
haven't recorded in 2 months because we did the last episode really early in the month.
Right.
Yeah, so it's been...
And
Because it was
we
the only-
recorded the bad VGM episode around the same time we usually record
Right.
EE.
Right, so
Yes.
Joe hasn't been on EE
In
since
a
the
couple
last
months.
episode,
Yeah.
but as of recording, like a couple of months.
So let's catch up with Joe.
Well, I finished Tears of the Kingdom. I put 100 and something hours into it and had a good time with it, and it's everything that I wanted it to be. But I was telling you guys earlier, I don't think I'll ever play it again. It was great and a blast and what I expected and what I hoped for, but I'm done with that now and I'm ready to move on to other things, and it doesn't feel like the kind of thing that has a lot of replayability to it. Like, I explored every nook and cranny and I satisfied my need to run in the opposite direction from where I was supposed to go. So yeah, I highly recommend it. Everyone should play it. But I don't think I'll go back to it again at any point. I did finish it, but it was a great game. And now I'm, for the last, I'll say, couple of weeks, I've been hopping from indie game to indie game, looking for something to hold my attention until Sea of Stars comes out 3 days from now. And that's going to be awesome. I hope.
Yeah, a lot of people are looking forward to that one.
And I also have my fall horror game suggestion in place now. Thank you, Ed, for suggesting I play Inscription. We watched a trailer for that, and that somehow escaped my radar. I always play a horror game, in September, October-ish, and I'm super excited to give that one a try because it looks awesome.
I can feel the Dyad's eyes lighting up from here. He loves that game.
Let's see, some other ones I tried. Castlevania Aria of what was it?
Aria of Sorrow?
Aria of Sorrow, thank you. And I played that for a little bit. I played Monster Train for a little while, which is basically Slay the Spire, and that was kind of fun. But I played Flint Hook for a while as well, and I had a lot of fun with that one until it just felt repetitive after a while. That's like a roguelike action platformer. So yeah, I've been treading water until Sea of Stars comes out, basically.
Yeah, I guess it's good just to keep your options open and not get too into anything because you know you're going to be involved by a game pretty soon.
And the one other thing I've been playing relates to my topic, and I'll get into that later.
Excellent. What about you, Todd?
I believe that the last time we were on the show, I was just finishing up Final Fantasy 16.
Yes.
I most definitely finished that.
Nice.
Excellent game. I very much
two
enjoyed
big
it.
game completions.
Looking forward to Joe playing it someday.
Yeah,
so that I
hem
can,
and haw over
so
a
we
PS5,
can share
for a while. I will buy one. I just don't want to spend all that money.
I get it. Since then, I have played and finished Spider-Man Miles Morales on PS5, which was good.
Cool.
I think I liked the first one better. It was a good deal shorter, but largely the same game as the original one. Like just in terms of like
I heard it was
mechanic.
more of like almost like a DLC or expansion pack than a
maybe I mean it is its own standalone thing. It does add a mechanic, a gameplay mechanic, but like the swinging around New York City and the fighting is largely the same.
Yeah.
But if you like that kind of thing, it was good.
Yeah.
I played a little puzzle game called The Gardens Between on PS5, which is an interesting, kind of reminiscent of that game Braid. Where cool. While you're walking forward, time moves forward, but when you walk backwards, time moves backwards.
Oh, interesting.
This kind of uses a little bit of that mechanic. It was very short. I think I finished it in like 2 hours, but a fun little puzzle game. I enjoyed it. If that sounds like it's up anybody's alley, I definitely recommend it.
Cool. I thought Braid had a time rewind mechanic that you could change independently of the direction you were
I don't
walking.
remember. It's been so long, but it definitely had a mechanic where you can move time forward.
Yeah, there's time
backwards.
reversal, and that's a huge part of how to get through the levels.
This game has that as well, so
Sweet.
It's similar in that respect. It was good. I enjoyed it.
Very cool.
Since then, like Joe, I've been kind of like bouncing around a lot of new and old games, nothing really notable. Right now, I'm playing a Metroidvania on the Switch called Islets. ISLETS, like islands, but islets, which is a really clever little. It's got kind of a cartoonish art style, but is a really cleverly done Metroidvania that I'm very much enjoying.
Sweet,
and I highly recommend it. And I am playing Star Trek Voyager Elite Forces. Yes, thank you. On PC for that little bit of early 2000s 3D jank, and I'm actually really enjoying that too.
I was going to say that was like 20 years ago, right?
Yeah. It's an old game, but it's fun.
Yeah, well, like I think we were talking about a little bit. You said it runs on the Quake 2 engine. I think it was originally developed as like a total conversion of Quake, like a fan game, and then they ended up just getting the license for it, and releasing it as its own individual game. They just licensed the engine from id and released it on its own. But yeah, that was a fun game. Had a lot of the voice actors from the series and everything.
I think they're pretty much all, at least of all the actual characters from the show. There's, of course, characters that aren't in the show in the game, but all the characters that are in the show, I think, are voiced by the actual.
Yeah, I should go back and check that out again.
Actors.
Speaking of Quake 2 got re-released. Night Dive Studios did the whole remastering thing that they did with the original Quake. Everybody was expecting it because there was lots of rumors and signs pointing toward it. And it was a great little follow-up to the Quake episode that I just released a couple months ago. So got back into that, playing a lot of Quake 2 again. There's a new mission pack, or whatever you want to call it, aside from the mission pack that released officially when the game came out. And it's really, really cool. It kind of reminds me a lot of like Doom 2016 in a lot of ways, but in like the Quake 2 engine with all the weapons and stuff. And if you already own the Quake 2 game on Steam, you got the upgrade for free, which was fantastic. Like I was already to throw a couple of bucks at it, and I looked in my my Steam listing there, and it was like, oh, it just automatically updates.
Same with GOG. I was very happy about that too.
Yeah.
It was a nice little surprise that just came out randomly one
Exactly. And I think I got the Quake 2 game when it was like on dead ass sale for like $2 or $3.
Right.
So
or
quite
like
the upgrade there.
Or something.
Yep. Let's see, there's been a little bit more Vampire Survivors content, so I've looked into that. No new like maps or characters or anything, but they upgraded the engine finally to run on Unity, so it's a lot smoother. You can have a lot going on at the same time on the screen, and the frame rate's a lot higher. Plus it gives you like widescreen support. So I've enjoyed that. released the state of Oklahoma for American Truck Simulator. So I've been driving around Oklahoma trying to visit all the cities and do all the deliveries. To get the every time they release a new state, they have like an event where you connect your account to this website called World of Trucks, and you can go to the website and it tracks your stats for the game and stuff. And if you do so many deliveries in a certain amount of time to or from the new state, you get an in-game reward, which is usually like a little hangy thing that you can put and dangle from your rear view mirror inside the game. So every time a new state comes out, I like kind of doing that. So I'm kind of halfway through that.
How long until you guys think real delivery trucks become driverless and are actually being piloted by gamers?
I think it could happen.
Maybe Ed's doing that now. He thinks he's just driving around Oklahoma, but what he's really doing is delivering for Walmart.
Did you guys watch The Peripheral? The Amazon series, sci-fi series?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, it's kind of a similar premise where, or somebody jumps into a VR game and they think that they're, running around beating up bad guys and stuff, but it's actually like they're piloting a humanoid like robot that's actually them,
like in the last
like in real life.
In the 80s?
Yeah, exactly. Gamifying real life is essentially the same kind of thing. I don't know. I can see it happening. I mean, drone pilots do it now with accuracy enough to blow up millions of innocent children. So why not trucks running over millions of innocent children?
You could be working for Walmart, like Todd said.
Yeah, that would be great. Just sitting at home all day, Doritos, Mountain Dew, virtual steering wheel, good to go.
What a future we have to look forward to.
Talk about a dystopia.
Oh man, but if you get into an accident and somebody dies, then who's responsible? Like there's probably ethical concern.
What happens if your internet cuts out when you're in the middle?
That too, right? And it causes an accident. So there's some issues there. Anyhow, so there's that, and I've been getting back into Katamari. They released We Love Katamari Reroll plus Royal Reverie. So it's they released the original Katamari game a year or two back, and they called it Katamari Reroll. Basically upgraded the graphics for modern systems. And so the second game was pretty good. So I did that. Played most of that. I mean, I saw the ending, but there's still a couple extra stages left to go. So that got me into a Katamari mood. I started looking into the states of emulation of the Xbox 360 and the PS3, and I find out they're both really, really capable. So now I restarted Katamari Forever on the PS3, but emulated on my computer, even though I own the game and the system, just for the convenience of it being on the computer. And so now I'm playing that as well. So having some Katamari fun. It's really been about it for me so far. I'm like hemming and hawing about Sea of Stars. I might try it out. I did like Chrono Trigger, and the game is supposed to be kind of a love letter to that, so I feel like that's something that's going to help me like the game better. So maybe I'll try it and we'll compare notes, Joe, next month.
Next month. We'll have something to say, I'm sure.
See how it goes. All right, so let's move into our first topic. Oh, I completely forgot. I wrote this down, and of course I forgot. I wanted to briefly touch...
It's in bold.
It's on the friggin' document.
You gotta underline that,
I should have put it in all caps. Maybe that would have helped out. It just got announced a couple days ago that Charles Martinet is stepping back from voicing Mario and Luigi, Waluigi, Wario.
It was bound to happen. I mean,
yeah.
Someday Shiggy will be gone. Like all the people that have been making these games for so long are going to stop at some point, right? So
yeah, I'm just wondering why now. The first thing I thought when I heard the news was, he was upset he didn't get to do the voice in the movie. Maybe there's some bad blood there or something. I don't know.
Maybe. I thought you were going to say like, oh no, maybe he's sick or something like that.
Well, that could be.
I mean, I guess that could also.
Nintendo's official press release.
How old a guy is he? Is he like?
It's probably in his, I don't know, mid 60s, early 70s. He's not young.
Yeah, so maybe he just is retiring. He doesn't want to work anymore.
But he's been the voice of Mario since the Super Nintendo days.
That's true.
So that's
quite
a while.
Question is, who's going to replace him?
That's the thing too.
And of course, his announcement has launched, a lot of people who do voices taking, tongue in cheek or not, but stabs at
hire me. Yeah.
At like, here's my audition for, to be Mario. And, I don't know how serious any of them are. A lot of them, I'm sure, are very not serious, but it's been fun, like, seeing that.
Yeah, I saw a YouTube clip of, I don't remember his name, it was one of the voice actors from Final Fantasy 16. He was like, here's my audition. Hello, it's me, I'm Mario. Right. Like 18 different takes of that, which I thought was great. British accent and all. So, and that's the other thing is like, are they going to find a sound alike? Is Mario's voice going to fundamentally change from this point forward? Are they just going
He's growing up?
Like, Mario says the same thing over and over again. Are they just going to use like pre-recorded wahoos and let's goes from previous games and just paste them into the new ones? Will they get Chris Pratt to do them all? Who knows?
Well, that much I doubt. I think Chris Pratt would come at too hefty a price tag.
Agreed,
but they could have Charles Martinet like one last time do what the woman who did the voice of the computer from Star Trek did, and like just like make all different kinds of noises from words so that they could string together.
Oh yeah. Major Barrett Roddenberry. That was the voice of the computer. Gene Roddenberry's wife.
Right. Yeah. But right before, she died or something, right?
She's passed away since, yeah.
No. I mean, like, why she stopped doing the voice.
I don't know. She at least lived through the next generation. I know that. So I don't know if she passed away during a later series.
But am I wrong in remembering this, that before she stopped doing the voiceover, for whatever reason it was, she recorded just like sound,
like phonetics,
right, so that they could continue using her voice as the computer.
That fact sounds vaguely familiar to me, but I cannot confirm or deny. I feel like I knew that, but I don't remember where I heard it.
Given the state of AI technology, do you even need a voice actor anymore?
Well, I guess there's that too.
This is the whole reason the writers and the actors are on strike,
right?
Because the corporations want to use AI, and they're like, hell no, because we'll never work again if you do this. So to answer your question, yes, Joe, yes, but no.
I'm not saying I'm in favor
They
of
can,
that.
but they're not allowed at this point. Yeah, so it's rough. We'll figure it out. So Super Mario Wonder, which is the new upcoming 2D Mario game, will be the first game without Charles Martinet voicing Mario. So I guess we'll know pretty soon what and if his voice sounds any different.
Maybe he'll go silent, like Link.
Oh, like completely mute. Yeah, but even Link still goes yeah every once in a while.
I guess.
And that's the range of Link's voice acting abilities.
Nintendo's gonna have to look long and hard to find someone who could pull that off.
That's what she said. Anyways, yeah. So I don't know. I was just curious. We had a little bit of discussion about that on the Discord. It was kind of a major topic across all the Discords that I was on when the news came out. So I guess we'll see.
I guess so.
I guess once Wonder comes out, we can revisit this topic and say, hey, they did a good job, or hey, what were they thinking?
They just used the same recording.
Yeah, damn it, Nintendo.
It's possible Charles Martinet did that voiceover before he stopped. Like
No. The press release was
that
he is
Wonder.
Definitely not voicing Mario in Super Mario Wonder.
I didn't see that.
Yeah.
Okay.
That was a couple days after the initial announcement that he was retiring and becoming a Mario ambassador, whatever that means. That was the other thing. I was like, I don't know what that means. So you're just gonna, I don't know, appear at Nintendo World in New York City every once in a while and sign autographs, or like,
I think
what does a Mario ambassador do?
I think they said he's probably just going to be like going to cons and stuff like that.
Sweet.
And like signing games or whatever.
He'll drop by the VG Embassy at some point as an ambassador.
That'd be nice.
Works for me.
I'll have him on as a guest.
Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
All right, so let's move on to our first topic. Yeah, I mean, I can always give him a shout. Let's move on to our first topic. Todd, what you got?
Well, my track is called VHS Death, and this is from Islets, the game I mentioned that I was playing. Released on a whole bunch of stuff just last year. I'm playing it on Switch, for whatever that's worth. This was composed by Eric Thompson.
All right, so yeah, it's a pretty good track. Be right back.
welcome back. That was VHS Death from Islets, released on everything in 2022, composed by the easy to pronounce Eric Thompson. Fun little track. We think that this is the credits. I don't know. I haven't gotten there yet in the game.
It's the last song on the soundtrack.
It's the last song on the soundtrack.
It's a good tune.
Presumably that's what it is. It's a good tune.
Picturing the credits rolling.
Yeah. I'll get there. I'm maybe halfway through the game, so we'll see.
How many hours is it going to take you think?
I'm about
like in the 10 to 15
I'm
range,
8 or 10 hours into it, and I think I'm probably about halfway through. So I don't maybe 25 hours in total if I want to do like extra stuff towards the end.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't think it's too much of a commitment. Anyhow, my topic for today, I wanted to get into a little bit of a discussion about the concept of video game preservation. Shortly after the recording of the last episode, so quite a while ago now, an article came out saying that about 87% of video games that have been historically released are not available on the commercial market, just because the consoles have gone out of fashion, and the publishers or developers have decided that it's not worth their time, or there's not enough money in making them available, and so they. The article just basically said that the history of video games is effectively being erased, and that there's no real mechanism for preserving them in any real way. Now, obviously, it even points out piracy has sort of taken up the slack, but in other mediums like books and newspapers and magazines and whatnot, there are, legitimate, for lack of a better way of putting it, methods of archiving these things so that people can go back and look at old newspapers in their library or what have you.
Whether it's microfiche or digitized.
Right.
Yeah.
But there's a way of accessing that content. With video games, something like that largely doesn't exist. I don't know that there's been a discussion at a higher like legal level or whatever on a legal way of doing anything like this. So I wanted to see what you guys thought a legitimate or legal means of archiving the history of video games might actually look like in today's world. Like what kind of like a library type or archive type thing that isn't just downloading them quote unquote illegally off the internet could be done to actually like have this thing be available for people in future generations. Eventually, the NESs are going to stop working. The cartridges are going to stop working. We can say, well, yeah, just go, buy a cart for Super Mario Brothers. Yeah, for now. But eventually, all that stuff is going to stop working. So what do we do then? So
there's a thing out there that has been out for at least a decade called the Retron. And it goes all the way up to the Retron 5, I think, which does Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega, Game Boy, and what was the fifth system that one does?
Well, Famicom. They kind of fudged it a little bit with that.
What I would imagine is a third-party developer making some kind of a console that is advanced enough that it can, I don't want to say act as an emulator, but act as a vehicle for playing old cartridges and discs and things like that for any system, or not any system, but for many systems.
Sure, but eventually those old cartridges are going to stop working too. I mean, they are just chips.
Yeah, I think when we're talking about the games themselves being available to purchase, like in the present day,
or even some like if you go to a library and look at an old newspaper, you're not like purchasing it. You're just like, looking at so like have it available by some legal means to have access to it, to study it or look at it, or see where how we've gone from Pong to Elden Ring. So
like an Atari library or a Nintendo library where you could go and borrow it for a day.
Borrow it, or even just like use it while you're there, or something like that. I don't know. I don't actually know what the answer is, but I thought it might be interesting to like kind of brainstorm a little bit on what something like that might actually be if it were to exist. Hopefully someday it does.
I feel like, is it true that every single book that has an ISDN is available in the Library of Congress?
I think so.
So I think that just needs to happen for games at this point.
So Video Game Library of Congress?
Essentially. I mean, that's literally like a backup copy of everything.
Yeah.
However, again, access to it, even though the public technically has access to it, doesn't mean that we have easy access to it.
Right.
So that doesn't really solve the issue of keeping that alive in people's knowledge. I don't know. It's a tough one to... Because access to games is different than access to newspapers, right? You can't just walk in. You can walk in and read the newspaper, get the information you need, and be out of there in like 10, 15 minutes. You have a 30, 40, 80-hour RPG. What does access to that look like?
Well, yeah. I mean, that's another end of this. You could go into a library and read an old newspaper in 20 minutes or a half an hour, or just look at the one article you're trying to find or whatever. That's not necessarily true for like the original Final Fantasy. I mean, I know you can speed run the original Final Fantasy in a few hours, but that's not really the point. If you're looking at the history of video games, you're not going to go into a library and spend 60 hours playing some old NES game, or maybe you are. I don't know.
What about like almost a documentary series or something like that? I imagine a lot of this probably already exists on YouTube, just in the form of extensive old retro game reviews and playthroughs.
Not having the ability to actually play
World
it.
of Long plays old games from beginning to end.
But it's not preserving the game itself.
That's not right. That's not preserving the actual content.
It's preserving the concept of the game. I think what the problem is that games use licensed properties from other entities. Even if it's not a game that's based on Disney or a movie or whatever, it's using Fmod or Bink or Havoc or some sort of engine created by a different entity that it's been licensed from. So to continue to sell a lot of these products that have licensed code that they've used from other... there's so much legality behind it. And it's kind of the... they kind of painted themselves into a corner in that kind of a respect. Like, how can we sell this game? It's got this song from this band that's not on this label anymore. How can we do this? We've used this likeness of this actor who the contract is, expired, or they've passed away and their estate doesn't want us to re-release anything with their likeness on it anymore. Like, there's too many variables on like a book where it's like you've got the author, you've got the publisher, and that's it. That's all you have to go through to offer this thing to somebody.
Right, yeah. I mean, licensing is a huge problem too.
Yeah.
That adds another layer of complexity. There's a bunch of games that you effectively can't stream on Twitch, mainly from like the PS2 era, where they were like, like car racing and skateboarding games were doing a lot of like licensed music.
Tons, yeah.
And you effectively can't stream them because they don't have, like, Twitch doesn't have the license for playing those songs. So like those games you can live, I think, but you can't have a VOD of it or something like that. I don't know.
There's a limited use, or you just hopefully the game will have an option where you can just turn the music down and you play without the music.
Right. I mean, that's kind of straying from the whole point of all of this. Yeah, but licensing is a huge problem. Like, Joe was suggesting that before we started recording that there'd be like Nintendo sells a collection of NES games, like the entire NES library, and that sounds great in theory, but Nintendo would never be able to license all of the games that were released on NES.
Right.
From all of the various developers from that time. You probably don't even... It's not even known for some games who owns it.
Yeah.
At this point.
Yep.
And so, like, how would you actually do that?
Right.
It would be next to impossible.
You would need a change in the licensing laws to allow Nintendo to do it without contacting the individual, whoever the license holders are now, but allow them, the holders themselves, to raise a claim for, their 0.001% of share of the profits or something like that, if they so choose. It basically would take a change to the laws to make it even feasible legally.
Right, or to reclassify games as art. In which case, the public should have access to it as, as they do with books, as they do with movies. etc. So, and then within that case, then the government would have control over distribution of it.
And one more thing I wanted to bring up, because I know we've been chatting about this for a while now, but one other thing I wanted to bring up is the future of video games. Xbox and Sony are already flirting with the idea of streaming video games, so that the concept where you don't even have the game even in a digital form.
You're interacting
locally
with a movie of a video game. Basically.
Right. You're effectively interacting with a movie of the video game. The processing is being done somewhere else. So, like if you were to buy or rent or whatever a game and you're playing it, what you're playing is a streaming version of the game. You never actually have it downloaded on your own computer or console or whatever. In a future where that happens, which I suspect they're trying to make it happen, how then do you archive or even pirate any of it if you never are even able to download it?
You don't.
Right.
You
so
don't.
that's another huge concern,
They control
right?
it. And to our credit, I think the public and the gamers have fought that every step of the way. I think, fortunately, with Google Stadia just falling flat on its face and completely being erased from the face of the earth within like a year or two of its being released, I think that was the call to corporations. We don't want this. It's not anything that we have ever dreamed of before. Well, stop.
Maybe, but the recently updated PlayStation Plus, where they came out with, what is it, Extra, and I forget what the top tier is, not Plus. It is PlayStation Plus. The top premium, I think it's called, or whatever the top tier of PlayStation Plus is, includes streaming PlayStation 3 games because you can't download the PlayStation 3 games to play them.
Right.
You can only stream them.
Yeah.
But you have to have that top tier of play. So Sony is still doing it.
It's streaming an older game that you might already have in your collection, I think, is less of a contested concept than saying, here's a brand new game, you can't buy it, you can't put it on your shelf, you can only stream it, have fun. That's a different because there's absolutely no way to own that video game. You can't walk into a used game shop and you can go into a used game shop and pick a PS3 game, or eBay and pick a used PS3 game off the shelf and bring it home. Streaming that is just kind of convenience. What they're trying to do with new games now with streaming, it's not a convenience. They're trying to just limit your access. They want that to be the only method of you accessing that video game.
Right.
So that's why that's being contested much more hotly than just saying, here's some older games, have fun.
Well, I hope you're right. We'll see.
I do too. And it's a way around bandwidth limits too. There's a lot of households in the US and Europe where you can only download so much at a time. And downloading a PS3 game is, up to 50 gigabytes sometimes. They're all on Blu-ray discs. So people might want to go to that limit to get a PS4 or PS5 game, but for something not as in demand as a PS3 game, why are you going to waste your megabytes on that when you can just kind of stream it? I don't know. Yeah. There's too many variables.
Yeah.
So I don't think we've come any closer to solving this problem than when we started this conversation.
I mean, I didn't think we were going to solve it.
Yeah,
but
we're raising awareness.
Right. It's something that I've thought about since that article came out.
Yeah.
Is I didn't really realize
up in arms.
I didn't really realize how bad it was. Obviously a lot of games are not on the commercial market, but I didn't realize that it was only somewhere around 13% of games are actually available. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. And not that I really had much guilt about it to begin with, but it makes me feel better that I have so many ROMs, because I just feel like I'm kind of helping out the world. If every other computer in the country died except for mine, well, hey, I've just saved video games assets.
You just saved the history of video games. So I don't know. I don't know what the future of this is going to hold, but hopefully, somebody comes up with something so that there's an actual archive of this stuff. Because otherwise, it will just disappear one day.
Well, speaking of games that are digital, but you can also hold in your hand, we got Joe's topic coming up. What's your song?
My song is the Dr. Zomboss stage theme from Plants vs. Zombies, the original one, released for eventually everything, first in 2009. Composed by Laura Shigahara. That was the theme from the Dr. Zomboss stage from the original Plants vs. Zombies, released for everything back in 2009. Well, first for PC and mobile, and then eventually everything. And this track was composed by Laura Shigahara. Which brings me to my topic. What is your favorite mobile game? What makes a good mobile game? And why might you choose to play it on a phone rather than on PC or a console? And the thing that got this on my mind is I recently got into Marvel Snap. A friend of mine got me into it, damn him. And I'm making it, and I'm going to tell you guys about it, as well as our listeners, so that they can get into it too, because nothing, they say misery loves company, so you guys will have to get hooked on it too. So Marvel Snap is a card collection game set in the Marvel Universe. Each game takes about 5 minutes or even less to play. It's done in 6 rounds. The goal of the game is that there are these 3 locations, and you have to play cards in each of the 3 locations to score points. You start with a base deck of around like 30 cards, but you only pick 12 of them to take into battle, I'll say. And the more you play, the more different cards you get. But the cards themselves are limited in terms of what they can do and how powerful they can get. And so you can't, pay $1 million or anything and unlock like the very best cards and just like beat everyone with it. The game is very, it forces you to play against other people who put in the same amount of hours as you, who've progressed about the same as you have. So it's always a competitive game.
It's a good balance to it.
Yeah. Like I said, it's a 6-round game, and you have to hope that you set up your deck well enough to have the right abilities and right powers and things like that, and take advantage of the different location abilities to beat your opponent in 2 out of 3 of the locations. So it's a trick-taking game, essentially. Super addictive, set in the Marvel Universe, and you don't need to give it any money. You can, of course, give money to buy upgrades and unlock things and whatnot, but you're never going to be... But even the upgraded cards are only upgraded in the sense that they are shinier, or they look a little different, or they have like animations to them. The cards themselves don't actually change.
Ah, gotcha. So it's not pay to win.
It's not pay to win, yeah. Which I like, because that would have immediately turned me off to the game. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. I've probably played a couple 100 rounds of it at this point. But like I said, each round takes less than 5 minutes, and you could do it literally anywhere because it's a mobile game. This is never one I would have any desire to play on a console, nor is it one that I would want to play on PC when I have a million other PC games I want to play. But if I'm waiting to pick up my kid from, dance practice, and I've got 10 minutes until the class lets out, it's not enough time to go anywhere, I'll just play around on my phone.
Right.
And I find that that's the perfect setting for me in which to play a mobile game. This is probably the first one I've played since Plants vs. Zombies, which I got really into 15 years ago, or 14 years ago when it first came out. And I don't think I've ever really gotten into any other mobile games since. But it got me thinking, like, what would it take for me to really get into mobile gaming? It definitely would have to have that short round aspect to it. Like, I could play it in a full round beginning to end in under 10 minutes. If it takes more than that, then I'm talking about having dedicated time to it. I can't do it while I'm waiting for something else, realistically.
Yep.
I like the card battler system. I like that you don't have to pay to win. And I like that there's a huge variety of cards that you could use to build your deck, and all sorts of strategies you could take to play effectively. So that's what it would take for me. What about you guys? Do you have any favorite mobile games? What do you like about them? And why would you play them on a phone rather than on a console or PC?
I'll let you go first, Todd, because I've got thoughts.
I largely have ignored mobile gaming. I have a couple of games on my phone, but it's not something that I seek out. I'm actually looking through my phone right now. If I'm going to play a game on my phone, it's probably going to be like a little puzzle game. Like, I have a game called Sherlock, which is a logic puzzle game, actually from a long time. It's actually a very old game. It was, I think, originally released on like Windows 3.1.
Wow.
And the person who made it has been sort of porting it to newer operating systems and whatnot, and has actually ported it to the phone. It's a logic puzzle, and once you like learn how the clues work and how to solve the puzzles, I think it's really good. So like if I'm sitting in a doctor's office or something like that, I'll play a round of Sherlock. And there's a couple of different styles of Sherlock type game that this developer has made. So like if you listener were to look it up and say, hey, this is a neat type of game, is there more? There most definitely is more. On top of that, desert golfing. Ed and I discussed briefly while we were talking about recording this podcast. It's a like procedurally generated golf game in the desert. I like mobile games.
Exactly.
I found it really difficult to play mobile games where they're like ports of like say a console game like Chrono Trigger or Final Fantasy or whatever that use a controller where they tried to virtualize the buttons on the screen, because I need the tactile feedback of pushing the button or feeling it with my finger before I push it, instead of like just touching a certain point on the screen, because I don't always know where that point is on the screen is. And so I found it very difficult for me to adapt to games like that. So I largely was turned off to that almost entirely. But games that were built to use the touch screen from the ground up, I found to be a lot better, like Desert Golfing or Super Hexagon. There's another one that was really good. But I don't play a lot of mobile games, so outside of that, I don't have much of an answer.
I don't know. I've been trying to get people to like look at mobile games as a viable form of gaming since the Pixel Tunes radio days. I remember Mike and I arguing about this endlessly. He would just constantly dismiss mobile games as, oh, it's just pay to win, it's all microtransactions. It's like, it's not all microtransactions, it's not all pay to win. You're just looking at the shovelware. And every system, every generation of games has shovelware. Like you're just refusing to see the games of value that are out there, and there are a ton. So, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. Like I started off playing. I think the game I've played maybe the most is Trials Frontier, which is based on that Trials series of like motorbike stunt racing games. I got super into that. I basically 100% of the whole game. They stopped releasing content for it, and I ran out of content to add. But huge amount of maps, huge amount of bikes. You can upgrade the bikes as you go. I was on like the top 300 of the leaderboards of 25,000 players. It was ridiculous. Had a huge amount of fun with that. There was this vertical shooter that I was playing for a long time too, and I completely forget the name of it. I did actually play a song from it on a previous podcast, but they released a sequel to it, and I had a lot of fun with it. It'll come to me eventually. What else have I played? Puzzle games. The Doctor Who Match 3 puzzle game was great. I spent a lot of time with that. Right now I'm playing Toon Blast, which is kind of like Candy Crush. I've been playing that for years. I'm up to basically I'm at the point where they've stopped. I've met the amount of levels that they've made for the game, and then I have to wait for the next 50 levels to be released the next month. And it's like level 8,500. Like I've been playing this game forever and ever and ever. Never spent a dime on it. You know, you can watch an ad if you want to add an extra turn if you run out of turns. So maybe I do that every once in a while, but for the most part, I've just been playing and having fun. And then I also subscribe to the Apple Arcade because it's $5 a month. All the games are free. None of them have microtransactions, and none of them have ads. So any game you get from the Apple Arcade roster, there's over 200 games at this point, you're going to get a uninterrupted game experience. And they're good, very good quality games. So, I don't know. I've actually been toying with doing a music from my favorite mobile games episode at some point, and you got a thought, Joe?
And this is actually why I am glad you picked this to be the question that the listeners respond to. My biggest problem with mobile games is that the music tends to be crappy or non-existent.
Oh, I've got plenty of examples for you.
So that's what I really want is some good suggestions as to mobile game OSTs that are worth listening to.
Sure, absolutely. Maybe I'll even have you on the show. You don't need to pick the music, but you can listen and comment. That'd be great. Yes, mobile game's good, in my opinion, and I just don't feel like they get such a bad reputation because that's how mobile games started, and that's like the impression that everybody has, and so it hasn't improved at all, which it definitely has.
Maybe that's my problem because I haven't really looked at the mobile gaming scene in any real way in years. All the games that I talked about have just been sitting on my phone for years and years.
Yeah.
Largely unplayed. I definitely did think that mobile gaming largely was a just pay-to-play, microtransactions nonsense. And I know that games that aren't like that exist on the platform or existed back when I paid more attention to this, but it seemed like they were few and far in between at the time, and even...
And I think the problem also was that because it was such kind of a newish platform for smartphones is that there was no curation, right? You're just tossed into this sea of endless video games. What's good? What's bad? How do you know? There's like reviews and stuff, but how many of them are bots? Like you can't always take those seriously.
Right.
So the fact that I'm sure you have an iPhone, you can probably get a free trial of Apple Arcade just to check it out for a month. Or there's plenty of mobile game sites now that review these games, which are the best ones, which are gonna just shake you down for money, and which are actually gonna provide some good gaming content. Which ones maybe they do have microtransactions, but maybe they are worth it and actually fun to play, and it's stuff you actually want to buy. Who knows? But I think there are more opportunities now for people that want to get into mobile games to find games that are worth their while, rather than just a bunch of crazy crap that somebody put on there just in case somebody might buy it one day and they'll make a couple dollars off it. So that's my opinion. So hopefully I've at least swayed your opinion enough, Todd, to look into them.
Maybe I will.
So let's read what some of our patrons had to say. We'll start off with Chris Murray. He says, I don't play a lot of mobile games because it's a lot of shovelware and microtransactions. See, you're just proving me right. And I wind up getting too sucked in when I find a game I want to play. I really enjoyed Venture Kid and Goblin Sword. Both are self-contained and real games. You don't have to pay to play, etc. And Venture Kid has a Matt Kramer OST, so that's a win. Yeah, that's actually how we found out about Matt Kramer, through that game. I also had a moment with the Fire Emblem Heroes game and a bunch of other games in a similar style, but they're ultimately so gimmicky and predatory that I wind up deleting them and never looking back. Star Wars Galaxy of Heroes, Marvel Snap, Call of Antia. A special shout out
Fair enough.
to the Hearthstone, but I feel like some of the new cards and styles really ruined that one for me. I don't know, so can you respond to that, Joe, about Marvel Snap being predatory?
I've paid exactly 0 cents, and I haven't felt that other players have had a leg up over me who have spent money. Because what you would buy are credits to upgrade your cards, but it's only in the card's physical appearance.
Right, it's cosmetics.
Right, it doesn't make them better players, it just makes their deck look cooler. It does allow them to unlock more cards sooner, but you're split up by your... So the more you win, the more you play, the more you buy, you increase your collection level, and the higher your collection level is, the more cards you unlock, as well as the higher tier of gaming challenges you unlock.
Right.
I'm just shy of the upper tier of players, or it's called the upper pool of players, and I'm staying shy of that on purpose because that would basically put me in a whole new world of players who are way better than me, who play it way more than I do, who would just destroy me. But I'm at a point now where I'm competitive and I'm having fun with it, and I'll probably try to get to that next pool by, doing a few more upgrades and being deemed worthy of trying it.
Yeah.
And, get my ass handed to me, and then I'll say, yeah, okay, I'm done with this.
Right. So it sounds
But I haven't paid a dime for this game.
Yes.
I haven't felt pressured to pay a dime because the pop-ups aren't invasive. Like, you could play the game without worrying that you're accidentally going to click on an ad and get yourself like out of the game, or it's not the paying money part is there if you want to do it, but it's not in your face the way I think it's traditionally or stereotypically thought of.
As long as you can still have fun while not paying more than you want to. That's the mark of a good mobile game, I think.
Yeah, and like I said, I've probably played at least 100 rounds of this thing, and I haven't paid a penny, and I feel like I'm a pretty competitive player for my level.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm wondering if Chris will respond to that on Discord about that, because it sounds like if you do use the money to buy new cards and stuff, then you're going to be matched with other people who have done a similar thing. Like, you're not going to buy more cards and then get all of a sudden be more powerful than the players that you're playing
and by the time you get to that upper level of unlocks, you're not playing against intro players anymore. You're only playing against other people who have either put 1 million hours into it to get to that point, or who have put $1 million into it to skip to that point.
Yeah, okay, understood.
And if you did that, you're just wasting your money because there's a lot of strategy that goes into it.
Sure, you're not going to have the skill.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Todd, why don't you read what Mike Stark had to say?
He says, my favorite, quote, mobile game, end quote, is probably Squirtle? Although that's just a browser game that is easily playable on my phone. If that doesn't count, then I have to say Star Trek Fleet Command, although that's also available on PC where I play about 50% of the time. A good mobile game will have good controls on a smartphone or tablet. That, and it should be a good game. Controls are really the only thing to me that distinguishes good mobile games from bad mobile games. There are also the trend of mobile games being greedy and microtransaction-y, which kind of sucks. But I don't think that's inherent to the mobile gameness of the games. It's mostly just a coincidence. I most often choose to play mobile games on a phone rather than a PC or console because I'm either A, at work, B, in bed, rarely, C, I'm playing a mobile game while watching TV. It's just a matter of availability. If I could bring a console to work and play during lunch or other downtime, I would. And on that note, some coworkers have brought Switches in to play games like Zelda or Vampire Survivors on Fridays. Man, I want a job where I can bring my Switch in.
If you have the kind of job where you can play Zelda at work, that's a good job. Because it's impossible to play that for less than an hour at a time.
Yeah, agreed. The thing with controls in mobile games, I think, kind of harkens to what you were saying, Todd, about folks trying to play mobile games that are just console games that have been ported to a phone or a tablet. But there are lots of mobile games out there that are specifically built for touchscreens that they don't control like a normal game would. There's no virtual buttons that you need to press that have been adapted from a physical controller.
Right.
And I think that's more the mark of a good mobile game, is if the controls are intuitive, that you just immediately know what to tap on the screen to make everything happen what you want to, and not like, oh, where's my virtual A button? Oh, where's my virtual D-pad? Like, how fast am I pushing this, or how far am I moving this analog stick that doesn't even really exist because it's flat?
Right.
I think that's why I like Marvel Snap so much, as well as a couple of the other ones that I've been playing, because they're card games and you don't really need controls. You just move the card where you want to on the screen, and that's it. Those are the controls.
Right.
You don't have to worry about timing or like pushing a fake analog stick far enough in one direction. It's just dragging a card onto the position on the screen where you want it. And I think simple controllers are necessary for a good mobile game.
Yes, and that brings up the point I was just going to make in games like Jetpack Joyride or Alto's Adventure, where you're literally the only control is putting your finger on the screen, lifting your finger off the screen, kind of like Flappy Bird, I guess. But in that, making the game so deep that, like, multiple modes of gameplay where just tapping the screen does a completely different thing and gets you to different places. And I don't know if you guys have played Jetpack Joyride, but it's basically like a left to right scroller. You're a guy with a jetpack. You push on the screen, the guy goes up. You let go and he falls. and it's a matter of like getting power-ups to shoot enemies that are in front of you, dodging laser beams, going up and down and all over the place, seeing how far you can get, getting a power-up, and then, kind of like almost like an endless runner kind of a deal, but each time you keep the money that you earn and you use that to power up, and then you get further the next time. So just games like that where you don't have to worry about controls because you're literally just tapping the screen, but you're having that much depth of gameplay and replayability. I think that makes a really good mobile game too. If you can design a game around tapping somewhere on the screen and like having it be good enough that I'm spending like tens of 20s of hours at a time in a month playing it, then you've done a good job designing a mobile game. That's my opinion.
Have you ever played a Dark Room?
Dark Room? No, I don't think so.
It's I have it on my phone actually. It's I think they called them time management games. So like you start in a dark room, such as the game might suggest.
I've lost you.
And you start by stoking a fire to light up the room, and the fire only lasts for a certain period of time. So while the fire is lit, you can find more wood or find some other supplies so that you can go out and you experience the story through doing things that only last a period of time or take a period of time in order to complete, and you build on what you're doing the further and further away from your home base that you can get and the deeper into the story you can get. And it's fairly simple in that, making a move like stoking the fire is really just like tap the thing that says stoke the fire.
Yeah.
And the fire is now stoked, and now it has a cooldown bar that's slowly dropping. And so now you can do other things while that's doing that. And that's an example of a good mobile game that has depth that I really enjoyed. I forgot about it when I was talking about games before.
Yeah, that sounds cool.
I really liked that one.
That reminds me of...
Give that a try. That sounds cool.
Yeah, that reminds me of Chibi Robo, where you start off with a very limited amount of battery life. You can only explore, like, the living room, and then as you do things, you gain items that, you go back to your main base and you upgrade your battery, and you can travel out just a little bit further. And
right.
You just keep going, and pretty soon you can... travel almost limitlessly and eventually get to the end game. But I do like those kind of games where there's always some sort of a sense of progression. Even if you die or run out of battery or run out of fire, you're back and you just try again, but you're not stuck all the way back to the beginning. You're stuck to where your abilities were when you started that short period of gameplay. So I'll check it out.
I really liked that mechanic in SteamWorld Dig. If you guys have played that one. You start out with a lantern that only stays lit for like a minute, so you've got to gather as much as you can in a minute to try to upgrade your lantern so that you can stay underground longer. So same idea, but I really liked it in that game.
Yeah, and there's always a tangible sense of progression in those games, which I really like, and I think that becomes addictive too.
Next up, Ryan Steele says, I like the idea of mobile games, but don't play much. The only game I play consistently is Fire Emblem Heroes, and that has petered out to mostly logging in for daily rewards. I spend enough time on my phone and its battery is pretty bad. I spent more time in college playing mobile games during classes. Now I might play ROM games during Harvest, but typically I'll use my DS with an EverDrive instead.
Okay.
Harvest? I don't understand.
He's a farmer.
He's a farmer.
Okay. Then
so
that makes
actual
sense.
harvest.
Yes. Okay. I thought that was...
He owns a big farm up in Canada.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, Fire Emblem Heroes was also something that Chris mentioned as well, which makes sense as being a big Fire Emblem fan. I don't know, I was excited at first about the Nintendo mobile games and like immediately lost interest. None of them are fun. I don't know why. I don't know how a game company with that much pedigree behind them can screw mobile games up so badly.
I think I played that Mario game for about 30 seconds.
Super Mario Run?
I was like,
that was the exact same amount of time I played it.
It was not fun. And then Mario Kart Tour just like basically like drove itself. I was like, this is not, it's too handholdy. I mean, I guess maybe they're going for baby gamers, or, they feel that mobile gamers aren't actual video gamers too and don't, I don't know. I never felt like any of them were for me.
I thought the Pokemon game that they came out with for mobile was really clever
Pokemon
idea.
Go? Yeah.
Was really clever. I was never a Pokemon fan, so I never played it. But I thought that like the actual like take your phone out and wander around and find the Pokies just by virtue of wandering around.
So the Last Rican says, the only mobile game I've ever played on and off has been Pokemon Go.
Aha. I spoke too soon.
I usually play it when walking the dog. Other than that, I sometimes get into a lot of Match 3 games. Yeah, I play a lot of Match 3 games too. Toon Blast, Zookeeper, etc.
I never got into Pokemon Go for the same reason that I think I was a little older than the intended age group for Pokemon when it first came out.
Same.
It just never caught on with me.
Yep.
But could you imagine if they did a World of Final Fantasy monster collection thing that used AR?
See,
kind of the way
now
Pokemon
you're
Go
talking.
does?
Yeah.
Man, I would cease to exist in the real world if there were a game like that.
Just put me in the phone.
Come on, Square.
I'm gonna get that Cactar. I'm gonna get it this time.
Yeah, I'm surprised they really haven't done more like that. There have been a couple of other games that have like aped that method of play, but they've been like either unlicensed or they've just been licensed with properties that aren't very popular. And I think it was the Pokemon aspect of it that really made people want to play it.
Yeah.
And I think a Final Fantasy thing would probably do the same thing. Call it Chocobo Collector or something like that. And
Well, they have the
crazy.
game for PS4, World of Final Fantasy, which is that exactly.
yeah,
But it's the idea of doing it with augmented reality, I think would be super cool.
yeah, agreed.
What other properties would be good for something like that, do you think?
Ooh, fighting things in the wild?
Yeah. Like,
Monster Hunter?
Yeah, I was gonna say Monster Hunter, Slime Rancher, like that kind of stuff. I can't think of anything else off the top of my head.
could a Mario game do that, do you think?
I mean, I guess you can collect Mario creatures and coins.
You could get like coins and stuff.
Well, rather
but-
than collecting them, you have to defeat them, you know. Or
Yeah, I guess. They did do a Walking Dead version of this game.
how about Dragon Quest monsters? Oh, that'd be cool.
Yeah, I think Slime Rancher is actually based on Dragon
Is it?
Quest.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Well then,
Yeah, it's like a resource farming game based on you basically harvest slimes from Dragon Quest. But Walking Dead had one that was augmented reality. Instead of finding and capturing Pokemon, you would find zombies out in the wilderness, and you would kill them, and they would get added to your collection and stuff like that. So
You think they could like knit a game like that with a console game? So like, imagine a Zelda game where like you take your phone out like onto a walking path or something and you find like rupees or a sword or something. And when you get back home, it links up to your console.
Yeah.
And you get that stuff
Yeah.
in the game.
100%.
man, that would be awesome.
Yeah, because
I would play the heck out of that.
Grand Theft Auto 5 is it? Yeah, Grand Theft Auto 5 has a feature where you can download the Grand Theft Auto 5 app, and was it 5 or was it 4? Maybe it was one of the Grand Theft Auto games. You have a pet dog, and you can use the app on the phone to train your dog, kind of like Tamagotchi style. And if you take like a certain amount of footsteps or whatever, then it's like the dog is walking with you and the dog gets stronger. So yeah, you can 100% do that. And it would just connect to the Rockstar servers. And then when you play the game would connect to the Rockstar server, download whatever data you've added from your phone during that day, and your pet would get powered up, fed, whatever it is. So
Nintendo and or Squaresoft. Square, please get on that.
yeah, I mean, there's a million ways to kind of combine those things together. Something like, didn't Sonic have a KO raising thing on the phone at one point? Oh no, it was the VMU for the Dreamcast. You could take the memory card out of the Dreamcast with the screen on it and raise your KOs like Tamagotchi style, and then put it back in the Dreamcast, and it would do more of whatever it was.
That was a decent idea that never really went anywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, the VMU I think was just not powerful enough to really be
you couldn't really
usable
have any
on its
like
own.
games on it.
Yeah.
Just like little time
But
wasters.
nowadays, that could do really well.
Something like that.
Sure.
You don't really have memory cards for systems anymore, though. So like that concept, it would have to be a different concept.
It would just
but-
connect via Wi-Fi. You know,
Yeah,
whatever
Wi-Fi
you do in the game would just throw it onto the game server, and then it would download it from the same server when you boot up the real game.
right.
Ready to move on to our next topic?
I think so.
Yes, sir.
All right, last one of the evening. This is mine. My track is I might have shared this one on the podcast before. I don't remember. I've definitely shared from the soundtrack, "Creamy Cove" from Aqua Kitty Milk Mine Defender, released in 2013 and composed by Electric Cafe. Okay, that was Creamy Cove from Aqua Kitty Milk Mine Defender, released in 2013, composed by Electric Cafe. Any excuse to play something from that soundtrack is a good excuse. You combine Amiga and Commodore sounds with modern drum kits, and I am putty in your hands. Which brings me to my topic, which is, have you ever discovered a game or series through a VGM podcast that's become a favorite? What was it, and where did you find it? Bonus points if it was a VG Embassy or Pixel Tunes Radio podcast episode. I chose Creamy Cove from Aqua Kitty Milk Mine Defender because it must have been like 2015, 2016. The game had been out for a couple years. Brian Mosley shared it on an episode of Pixelated Audio, and I instantly fell in love with it. I was like, I've got to figure out what this game is, where it came from. Got the album, got the game, and this song has become, this whole album has become a favorite of mine for like the past 10 years. I can't get enough of it. So I always remember whenever I listen to this album back in the old Pixelated Audio days and thanking Brian profusely for the next 10 years for sharing the soundtrack because I loved it so much. So that kind of got me thinking, like everybody else listens to video game music soundtracks and listens to all the video games that we play and all the music that we play. There's got to be somebody who's discovered something somewhere, and I've always been really curious about if and what you've found through a podcast that's become a personal favorite. So, what about you, Joe?
For me, it's got to be some of the obscure systems that you've covered, not just in VG Embassy, but back in the Pixel Tunes days. I remember in particular the Sharp X68000 episode that you did, which was something before that I had never heard of, had no clue even existed. But I did some research after it and realized that, wow, some of this is actually, fun to listen to. And it's a shame we can never actually get our hands on the games because, I still haven't played them or anything.
There's really good emulation, so we should do an X68000 night some night.
I'd be up for that. But yeah, after listening to that episode, I decided to dig up some of the music and found that I enjoyed quite a bit of it.
Sweet.
And I've done that a number of times with your shows. And just generally, like when I'm looking for something new to listen to, I'll just text you out of the blue and say, hey, I have some time on my hands, suggest something for me. And then you'll write me back, well, what kind of mood are you in? It's a bigger question than I was asking. Just tell me something, man. And that's how actually you got me into Aqua Kitty. And I discovered the soundtrack when you were in your phase of telling the universe how great it was. And I have to agree, it's a great soundtrack, and I would never have heard of it because the game wouldn't have come across my radar otherwise. So, yeah, those are my selections.
Oh, God. Would that be a cool Patreon tier? Like $5 subscribers and up can use me as a VGM concierge. They just message me and they're like, hey, I need a soundtrack that sounds like this. Go. And I just message them back with a cool soundtrack to listen to. Like on demand. Maybe a limit, but
you can do that for just $5.
Way to leverage your special skill, man.
Why not? I mean, that's kind of cool. Listeners, if you're out there and you would be cool with something like that. I mean, I'm sure the $5 and up people would already say fine. But if you would upgrade your tier or if you would become a Patreon member to take advantage of a service like that from me, let me know. I mean, that sounds like something fun.
That's, way to leverage your skill, man.
Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
What about you, Todd?
I don't really have an answer for this. I don't, listen to a video game soundtrack and go, now I need to play the game. So, I listen to video game music, and I play video games that have music. Mm-hmm. But to me, they're kind of separate things, if that makes sense.
Oh, interesting.
So, okay. Even if I'm playing the game that has the same soundtrack as what I listen to, listening to it as a soundtrack is like a different experience to me. So I don't really go from one to the other, if that makes sense. I'm not going to hear a song on a podcast and be like, now I want to play this game. It doesn't really work that way for me.
What about just music then? Have any soundtracks become your favorites because of podcasts?
Well, now you're putting me on the spot.
You're just completely unswayed by any sort of media. We know, Todd.
I'm completely unswayed by any sort of media.
Except game trailers.
Probably, but I can't put my finger on any at this point.
That's fine.
So
Even like Legacy Music Hour, like back in the day when we were...
Well, that's what I'm trying to think back to like all these podcasts that I've listened to.
Yeah.
And there's been a lot, so...
No, I know. I mean, you're the one that introduced me to Legacy Music Hour, so you've been listening to VGM podcasts even before I have.
For quite some time, yeah. I don't even remember how I stumbled upon that podcast. But yeah, I mean, it's been a while, so yeah, I'm sorry, but I don't have...
No. I mean, that's totally fine. Maybe you'll think of something on the way home and you can throw it in the Discord.
Yeah.
Let's read what some of our patrons have to say. Start off with Chris Murray, Todd.
Chris says, there have been so many games and series, but I'd have to say the Ease series and ultimately a lifelong love affair with Falcom games was explicitly due to VGM podcasts. I had no idea these games existed, and I played Ease 8 just to see where Sunshine Coastline appeared, and it blew me away. I've obviously learned about a ton of composers and their games from the casts as well. Norton Rad, Megan McDuffie, Vert, Dia, Coda, etc. And tons of games and soundtracks from systems that I had no familiarity with from people like Ed's encyclopedic knowledge of Japanese computer systems and consoles, like what Joe just said.
Yeah, that's it exactly.
Yeah, the E series. I mean, when if you haven't been introduced to Falcom and that's kind of your music, that just becomes your life. There's just so much good Falcom stuff out there. So Chris hit the jackpot, I guess, when he discovered that.
Next up, Bedroth writes, I picked up The Messenger. Oh, yeah, that was another one you told me about.
Yep.
Okay. I picked up The Messenger after hearing about it on several shows, including Ed's interview with the composer, Rainbow Dragon Eyes, on this very show. The game has since become a favorite of mine. I'm actually playing through it again right now with my son. It's single player, but we're doing simultaneous playthroughs in preparation for Sea of Stars. Yes, me too. Which takes place in a different time, but within the same universe. So thanks for that.
Hey, anytime, Bedroth. You are welcome. That's a fantastic game. I'm actually really glad that I was able to have Robert Eric Brown on the podcast because I just learned so much about his making the games or making the music for the games, and having a dual-sided soundtrack with NES and Genesis, kind of like songs that mirror each other and perfectly line up with each other. That was just such a cool show to do. So I am glad that it helped some people discover it and discover his music. Kyle Kroll says, my thanks to Keyglyph and the Dyad for introducing me to Echo the Dolphin and Katamari Damacy Reroll, respectively, going all the way back to the first episode of VG Embassy on this one. Yeah, I was absolutely surprised with the depth and quality of Echo the Dolphin music when we did that show. It was just like every single game we pulled out of, there's so much cool, weird stuff. It's like, it's so far from what traditional VGM is, but it's so endearing. And then Katamari, yeah, that show was something that Dyad and I had wanted to do for a long time. And the reroll game was like the perfect opportunity to do it. And every single piece of music on those games is just a banger. So I'm glad I could introduce somebody to that as well.
Next up, The Last Rican writes, so obviously Vampire Survivors because of this podcast.
Hell yeah.
Ed. I second that. Damn you, Ed. That soundtrack is amazing.
You'll never find the vampire.
I bought 2 games. One I didn't know existed because of Bedroth's old podcast, Very Good Music, a VGM podcast. Those games were Disney's Magical Tetris Challenge. Yes, I forgot about that one.
That's a good game.
And PN03?
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
It's a Platinum Games game, I think, on the GameCube. It's like a, sci-fi action shooter.
I found out about Shin Megami Tensei Digital Devil Saga from Rhythm and Pixels.
Oh, yeah. Purnell's really into that stuff. I've never really been into the Shin Megami Tensei games. I like the music. It's pretty good, but...
My wife, it turns out, is a huge fan of Shin Megami Tensei.
Or
at least Persona. She's like rabid
really?
For Persona.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, tell her to come on. We'll do a Shin Megami Tensei show. I know the Persona games take like millions of hours to finish.
Yeah, she played Persona 5 for well north of 100 hours.
That's insane. Ryan Steele says, I'm not sure if I would consider these games my favorite, but I have for sure played some games because of the VG Embassy, such as Katamari. However, due to the VG Embassy Discord, I've met some amazing people. I've been playing games with Dan for the last 2 years, roughly, and we've played through all the Souls games, which has become one of my favorite game series. So thank you, Ed, for this wonderful community you have fostered. Oh, thanks.
Hey, guy.
Well, seems like Katamari is becoming kind of a small theme going on. It's difficult to listen to Katamari music and not be like, I want to hear more, and I want to find out what this game is about. So, good stuff. And Dan is going to be on the show in, I believe it's November. We're waiting for a particular game to come out so that we can do a themed show. So we've been kind of putting it off because it's been getting delayed, but he'll be on very soon. It's always fun when Mr. Lawton's on.
Alex the Messenger says, I wouldn't say a specific game or series, but I was introduced to Tim Follin through Legacy Music Hour, and hearing BGM 2 from Silver Surfer blew my mind the first time that I listened to it.
Amen.
That's fair. Great song, great music. He was one of the first composers I played on Pixel Tunes Radio #1, so hopefully I introduced a bunch of people to it through that as well.
Utopia Nemo writes, okay, this is actually a difficult question. I've discovered so many new games from VGM Podcast, but my relationship with VGM Podcast has created a bit of a double-edged sword for me. They've enabled me to experience VGM on its own terms, developing a relationship outside of the games for which they're created. So most of the time, VGM Podcasts just inspire me to acquire the music, not necessarily the games. I'm kind of that way myself. The most obvious exceptions that come to mind are Oxenfree, Dropsy, and Grindstone. Grindstone and Oxenfree were 100% Ed-recommended joints, although I only played Grindstone to figure out how the heck those tunes could be tied to a puzzle game. Dropsy was jointly inspired by Ed and Pixelated Audio, and for what it's worth, I bought the OSTs for all 3 games before I decided to try them. As an aside, I probably purchased more games from recommendations from VGM Podcast social media outlets, where fellow fans and I can actually discuss the games in question.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, 3 fantastic soundtracks, 3 fantastic games. I haven't thought about Dropsy in a long time. I should dig that OST out and listen to it again. And Grindstone, too. Sam Webster's just a fantastic composer. Lots of hip-hop influences and kind of glitchy electronic tones over it. And he's released some good stuff since then, too. So, cool. Thanks, Nemo. Cam Childs writes, the game I discovered through VGM Podcasts was Friendship.
Aww.
Unfortunately, I don't have a game answer for this, but my answer is still very true. Smiley face with sunglasses emoji.
That's nice.
The game we learned was friendship along the way. Or the friendship we learned was game along the way. We realized the game was inside our friendship the whole time.
The music was there all along.
The music was friendship all the game. Game was the music all the friendship. I think that's what Cam is trying to say here.
Something like that.
Yes. Oh, man. So, yeah, I'm happy that I could introduce lots of folks to new music. It seems like Katamari was kind of a standout, which is great. Maybe that might call for a Katamari episode 2. I mean, we shared a lot of music on that show, but there's a ton of music from those games. There's like...
How many of those games are there?
5. So there's 2 on the PlayStation, 1 on the Xbox, 1 on the PS3. Oh, actually, there's 6. There's 1 on the PSP, and there's 1 on the Vita. And there's also a mobile game, too.
I wasn't familiar with the Vita.
Yeah, the mobile game, which I guess would technically be 7, I don't think has original music. I think it just has music from previous games. And the Vita may or may not have original music. I'm not 100% sure. But I know most of the other ones have original music and or remixes of previous games tunes. So, but hundreds and hundreds of songs for that game series. So, yeah, great game, great series, and hopefully more people will check it out and enjoy it. I'm surprised there isn't. I mean, maybe they're doing these re-rolls because the game series is still popular and people are still buying them. So hopefully, if there's enough people checking out the re-roll games, they'll end up making another game in the series, or they want to remake the Xbox 360 and the PS3 games, both of which were very good as well. Just be fun to get all of the main game series available via, Steam and all the modern consoles. Yeah, for sure. But yeah, that about wraps up the show. That was a lot of fun. This coming next VG Embassy will be a solo show featuring Sega CD music, but not CD audio. So Sega CD chip tunes, which nobody really ever plays on podcasts. So I thought that would be a fun thing to do.
May I suggest the Sega CD menu music?
You could. I haven't recorded it yet. I could throw that in there.
Play that in the background.
I think what we did a Sega CD episode of Pixel Tunes Radio, and we shared the BIOS music, like all 3 different variations on the BIOS music. But that might be fun just to do as like an intro or an outro, or just to kind of compare and contrast. But that technically is chiptune. It doesn't run off a CD, so it uses the... actually, it might be good as a demonstration of what the Sega CD audio hardware is capable of. So, good inspiration there. Thank you. As always, I'd like to thank Jason Letourneau for our podcast theme song and all of our podcast Patreon folks, starting at our tourist level, Cameron Childs and the Phantomire, our VG emissaries, Alan, aka Periodical, Chris Murray, Chris Myers, Gannon11, Keyglyph, Kyle Kroll, The Dyad, The Last Rican, and Professor Tom, our audio attaché members, Cameron Werma, Carlos, and Scott McElhone, and our special agent, Ryan Steele. Thank you so much for your continued support of the VG Embassy. I probably should have said this at the beginning of the show, but I am going to be adding a bonus shorty, quickie Patreon exclusive podcast to the Patreon feed starting next month. I'm either going to do some bonus content from the VG Embassy that came out during it, or like a mini review of a retro soundtrack, or just like a developer's commentary on the VG Embassy. Something fun and something special to show you, Patreon folk, how much I appreciate you guys. This will be available for all Patreon tiers from $1 up to $10. So if you want to, or beyond to the $25 and $50 tiers too. So if you're interested in hearing some extra content from me and you want to join the tourist level, go right ahead. If you want to join more than that, also go right ahead as well. Patreon.com/the VG Embassy. You can take a look at all the tiers and what they include.
And if you have already become one of those higher tier members, start bombarding Ed with hyper-specific questions about what kind of soundtracks you want to listen to.
We haven't decided on this yet.
The more hyper-specific or the better.
If it's, I'll say I'll do...
He appreciates the challenge.
I'll say I'll do it if it
He says you can't do it. He says you won't do it.
Guys, unbelievable. I want to see if it will inspire more folks to either up their tiers or join. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. It might be something fun to do, depending on how demanding it is too.
Day or night, anytime.
And also, folks know my tastes. I'm not gonna be able to do much as far as like orchestral or classical soundtracks, but everything else, chiptune.
We'll post his personal number on the Discord. Anytime, day or night.
They already have it at this point anyway. Anyhow, thank you guys all so much, Patreon or otherwise, for your lovely supports. We will see you back in a couple of weeks with our next VG Embassy episode. Night, everybody.
Bye.
See ya.